Aaron Rodgers breaks his silence on a controversial career decision. It was a moment that had everyone wondering, would Aaron Rodgers retire, or would he play one more season? He had been grappling with a difficult decision, one that could mark the end of an era. His silence only fueled the fire. Rodgers was ready to break his silence. The host asked, "Aaron, can you tell us where your mind is right now? What went into your decision?" Rodgers paused for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts, before leaning forward slightly. His usual calm demeanor remained, but there was an undeniable seriousness in his tone. "I have had a lot of time to reflect," he began slowly. "I have been through a lot over the years, and this decision has not been easy." Rodgers took a deep breath, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The host waited, sensing the importance of what was about to come. Fans watching from all corners of the world leaned in, their eyes glued to the screen. This was not just any announcement. This was the decision that could reshape the future of the NFL. "I have had a lot of time to reflect," Rodgers continued, his voice steady but tinged with a sense of gravitas. "And in that time, I have realized something. Football is not just a game to me. It is a part of who I am. But so is everything else in my life. And that is what made this decision so incredibly difficult." The host nodded, clearly understanding the weight of what Rodgers was saying. "So, are you telling us that your career is over?" the host asked, leaning forward in anticipation. Rodgers paused again, and the silence in the room felt heavy. Finally he spoke, his words deliberate, measured. "No," he said, shaking his head slightly. "I am not retiring. But it is not that simple either. There is a lot more to this than just stepping onto the field again." The room seemed to hold its breath. The statement had shattered the expectations of fans who thought the decision was already. Rodgers had not confirmed nor denied anything fully, leaving the world waiting for the next piece of the puzzle. "What does that mean?" the host asked, sensing that Rodgers was about to explain further. Rodgers' eyes met the camera, and for the first time in weeks, he seemed ready to share what had been weighing on him for so long. Rodgers took another breath, his gaze fixed forward. The tension in the room was palpable, as if everyone was holding their breath, waiting for him to reveal more. "What I have realized," he began, "is that it is not just about football anymore. It is about my legacy, my body, and what I still have to give." The host leaned in, sensing the shift in tone. "So, you're saying it is not about the game anymore?" he asked, his voice quiet with curiosity. Rodgers nodded slowly. "Exactly. The game has always been my passion, but there is so much more now that I have to think about. My health, my family, and my future beyond the field. Football is demanding, and after so many years, the toll it takes physically and mentally is something that can't be ignored." The fans watching the interview were quiet, their anticipation growing. Rodgers' words were heavy with significance. For the first time, the world was hearing him speak not just as a quarterback, but as a man facing the realities of aging and the future. And that is what made this decision so tough. Rodgers continued, his voice quieter now. "I had to ask myself, can I still give the game everything it deserves, and can I live with the sacrifices it requires?" The answer wasn't clear, and that's why I've had to take my time. The host, sensing the sincerity in Rodgers' voice, nodded in understanding. "So, what happens next?" he asked, trying to navigate through the layers of Rodgers' thoughts. Rodgers paused, looking down for a brief moment. When he looked up again, the next part of his journey would begin to unfold. Rodgers took a moment before answering, as if the weight of his words had not yet fully settled in his own mind. He glanced at the host, then back at the camera, addressing the millions watching. "I had to ask myself, do I still want to chase another Super Bowl?" he said, his voice steady but filled with reflection. "I have done so much in this game, and the goal has always been to win. But after all the years and the highs and lows, the question I had to answer was, what is winning to me now? The host leaned forward, intrigued. And what is that? Answer. Rodgers paused again, his eyes narrowing slightly, as if contemplating his response carefully. Winning is no longer just about the hardware. It's about my health, my happiness, and how I feel when I wake up every day. It's about being able to walk away from the game when I am still proud of what I've done, instead of walking away because the game walked away from me. The interview took a turn towards the personal, and fans could sense the deep introspection in Rodgers' words. The career of one of the NFL's greatest quarterbacks was not just about touchdowns or MVPs anymore. It was about his own fulfillment and his ability to continue at the level he demanded of himself. I have a few more seasons left in me, but I will not pretend it is not a challenge, Rodgers admitted. I will not pretend it is easy, and that is why this decision is not a simple one. The room fell silent as Rodgers' words hung in the air, creating an even deeper sense of anticipation for what would come next. Rodgers looked down briefly, collecting his thoughts before continuing. I had to really sit down and ask myself some tough questions, his voice quieter now. I have given so much. This game sacrificed my body, my time, my life. And now, as I stand here, I realize that I don't want to regret anything. I don't want to end up in a position where I stayed too long chasing something that no longer brings me joy. The host nodded slowly, clearly moved by Rodgers' candor. That is a very honest way of looking at it, he said, and it seems like you are putting a lot of thought into this decision. Rodgers gave a small nod, his eyes distant for a moment, as he reflected on the years of his career. It's a strange place to be in, he said, almost to himself. You know, when you're younger, you don't think about the end. You're too focused on winning, on getting better. But as you get older, you start to realize that time is not infinite, and it changes the way you view everything. The room was quiet now, as if everyone present was feeling the weight of his words. The legendary quarterback was not just talking about football. He was talking about his own mortality, the inevitability of change, and the importance of finding peace with whatever comes next. And that is why this decision is so hard, Rodgers continued. It's not about a game or a contract. It's about how I want to live my life and how I want to feel when I look back. The host waited a beat before speaking, clearly aware that the next words Rodgers would speak would be the ones everyone had been waiting for. The room seemed to hold its breath as Rodgers leaned forward slightly, his hands clasped in front of him. So, what does that mean for the future? The host asked, almost cautiously, sensing the turning point in the conversation. Rodgers looked up, meeting the camera's gaze. It means I'm not ready to say goodbye yet. He said, his voice firm, but with a hint of vulnerability that had not been there before. I still have something to give to this game, to my teammates and to the fans. I have not walked away from the fire yet, but I also know that it won't last forever. The host raised an eyebrow, intrigued by the contradiction in Rodgers' words. So, you're not retiring, but you're not making any promises either? Rodgers gave a small smile, the first one he had shown during the interview. Exactly. I am not retiring today, and I am not going to make any promises about the future. I will take it one season at a time, and when I feel like I can no longer give my best, that's when I will step away. But right now, I am focused on this season. I owe it to myself, my team, and the fans to give everything I've got. His words were measured, yet powerful. The room was quiet for a moment, as the significance of his statement settled in. Rodgers was not just speaking to his fans, or the media was speaking to himself. His decision was no longer about proving something to others. It was about his own peace and fulfillment. Football is not forever, Rodgers continued, but for as long as I can play at a high level, I will keep playing, and when I am done, I will know it. The air felt different now, charged with a sense of finality and possibility. The world was waiting, But it seemed Rodgers had already found his clarity. The host sat back in his chair, clearly processing Rodgers' words. There was a quiet respect in the air as the quarterback's honesty hung between them. "It sounds like you are at peace with your decision, at least for now," the host said thoughtfully. Rodgers nodded. "Yes, I am. The reality is that no one can predict the future, not even me. But what I can control is how I approach each day, each game. I am focused on giving my best while I can. I have had the privilege of playing for many years, and I am not going to waste the time I have left." The interview had taken on a more reflective tone now, as if the conversation had shifted from a simple career update to a deeper exploration of what really mattered to Rodgers. Fans watching could feel it, too. This was no longer just about the next season or the next game. It was about the final chapters of an extraordinary career. "What are your goals for this season, then?" the host asked, shifting the focus back to football. "Now that you've made this decision, what drives you?" Rodgers' expression softened. "I want to win," Of said, his voice firm once again. "But I also want to enjoy the process. I want to enjoy the moments with my teammates and appreciate what we have together. That's something I didn't always do when I was younger. Now, it's about finding balance." As he spoke, it was clear that Rodgers had not only made peace with his decision, but had come to a place where he understood the importance of cherishing every moment he had left in the game. The next season would not just be another year of football for him. It would be a year to savor, to give everything he could, and to leave nothing behind. The host leaned in one last time, sensing that this was the final stretch of the interview. The moment everyone had been waiting for was here. "So, Aaron," he began, "what would you say to the fans who have followed you all these years? What can they expect from you moving forward?" Rodgers sat up straighter, his eyes focused and resolute. "I would say thank you," he replied, his voice steady but filled with gratitude, "for their unwavering support over the years, for believing in me, even when the path wasn't always clear. The fans have been a huge part of everything I've achieved. I know that the bond we share goes beyond the field. It's something I will always cherish." The host nodded, understanding the depth of the connection between Rodgers and the millions of fans who had followed his career through all its highs and lows. "And what about the critics?" he asked, his tone now curious. "How do you handle the criticism, especially now when many people are questioning how much you have left in the tank?" Rodgers chuckled softly, a rare moment of levity in the otherwise serious interview. "Criticism is part of the game," he said. "You can't please everyone, and at this point I don't try. I focus on doing my job, being a leader, and giving my best to my team. The rest will take care of itself. And as for the critics, they'll always have something to say. But that's not what drives me. What drives me now is the love of the game, the challenge, and the opportunity to make the most of the time I have left." The host smiled, clearly impressed by Rodgers' clarity and determination. "It sounds like you've reached a place of peace with where you are and where you're going," he said, summing up. Rodgers paused for a moment, then nodded. "Yes, I have. And while the future is uncertain, what I know for sure is that I am not done yet. I have more to give, and I will give it all until I can't anymore. That's my promise to myself and to the fans." As the interview came to a close, Rodgers stood up, his expression calm but resolute. The decision was made. His career would continue, but it was no longer just about chasing titles. It was about enjoying every moment, embracing the challenge, and walking away on his terms. No regrets, no second thoughts. The host concluded the interview with a smile, knowing that this conversation would be remembered as a defining moment in Rodgers' career. As for the fans, they now knew the truth. Aaron Rodgers was not done yet. His journey was far from over. The future of football was still very much in his hands, and the world was watching waiting to see what would come next. What do you think? Is this the beginning of a new chapter in Aaron Rodgers' legacy? Or is the end drawing near? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And stay tuned for more updates on this incredible career